Hey guys, what's up? It's Sam Cooke from Sam Cooke Live, along with boy band expert Cinzia DiFranco, also one of the hosts of the podcast Boy Band Break, available on all podcasting channels. And right now, we have a chance for you to win some cool stuff, and all you need to do is comment below and say, I want to win. Here's what we got. Number one.
NSYNC Valentine's Day cards.
Love it.
New Kids on the Block school supplies.
Love it. And what do you have?
And I have a program from the Kentucky Music Hall of Fame from when Brian and Kevin from the Backstreet Boys were inducted in 2015.
So cool. All you need to do to win, like I said, is comment below. And Cinzia will be giving this away on February the 17th, 2019 on her podcast. Tell them where they can find you, Chins.
So you can go Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at Boy Band Break, iTunes, wherever. SoundCloud.
Good luck. Bye, bye, bye. Oh, that wasn't even planned.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Here we go.
This is Sam Cooke Live.
Cinzia, hanging out with me today on the show on Sam Cooke Live, boy bandologist.
That is the name I've been called over the years, yes.
I am so excited to talk to you about boy bands today. Deep down inside, I am a boy band freak. I love them all. I love NSYNC.
Excellent.
Backstreet Boys. I love New Kids on the Block.
Gotta love the OG boy band.
I love to.for. Do you remember?
Yes, I do. I love Canadian boy bands.
Canadian boy bands are
Three
amazing.
Deep.
Three. I have pictures with that band. I forgot about them. O-Town.
O-Town, yeah.
These are just some of the bands.
Five is a British boy band.
Yeah, I remember Five as
Yeah.
well. And I mean, that was the time when music was just, you couldn't be in a bad mood listening to any boy band. And now they're back. And I'm so excited.
It's great. It's awesome. We have some bands that have stayed the entire time, some that took breaks, and
That's
then a
right.
bunch of new boy bands as well that have come out over the last few years too.
Now, we're going to talk to you throughout the podcast about boy bands because you are very knowledgeable when it comes to boy bands. And not only that, you travel across the country to hang out with some of these boy bands.
Yes, and it's lots of fun.
And it's so much fun. And you have your own podcast called Boy Band Break. You can look it up on SoundCloud and all social media
Facebook, Twitter,
platforms,
Instagram, all that jazz.
Yeah, which is so cool. And so I want to ask you, boy bands, go back as far as I remember.
Right.
But who do you think was the original, the OG boy band?
Well, so we've had a couple of interesting discussions about this on our show because some articles we found have said things like Jackson 5.
Okay,
or
yeah.
like the Beatles
Yeah.
or things like that. But the ones that we do focus on all of them, but the ones that are more kind of like the Lou Pearlman era, if you will, like the late 90s, early 2000s. But in our case, we kind of think that New Kids on the Block would be like the original of the modern boy bands.
Right.
Is the ones we kind of like.
So,
which is like a boy band for us is like a 5-member group that has they sing and they dance and they are just lovely and have all their distinct different personalities and stuff. So yeah, it's good.
The Beatles.
So I don't know, because so for us, most of the more modern boy bands don't play instruments. And they just kind of are more of vocal harmony groups and sing and dance and stuff.
Right.
But like the Beatles and the Monkees and all that stuff, they played instruments, but they had crazy amounts of fan following.
Yes.
The girls, you just watch old footage of things and
They go crazy. They go crazy.
What girls do not like very good looking boys singing love songs to them? I don't know.
I used to think I was going to marry Davy Jones from the Monkees. I literally thought it was a thing. And then I phased out. I thought, no, okay. But then when New Kids on the Block became a thing, I instantly thought Joey McIntyre is my guy. This is the guy that I'm marrying.
Beautiful blue eyes, baby face.
And let's talk a little bit about New Kids on the Block because they were kind of one of the first.
Right, yeah.
Tell me a little bit about how that group got put together.
Okay, so this is actually interesting. They have there's a book that they released a few years ago. I can't remember the name of it right now, but it has something to do with 5 brothers and a million sisters or something.
Okay.
So I do really enjoy reading a lot of boy band related books. Lance from NSYNC has a good autobiography, and there's other ones like that. But so essentially what happened, they were in Boston, and they were actually Maurice Starr was the guy who kind of put them together.
Okay.
They all came from really big families, and I believe 4 of them actually went to school together. So that's kind of how they kind of knew each other. So
Okay.
Obviously John Knight is Jordan's brother.
Right.
So then Donnie and Danny, and Jordan, I think, had started it. And then I believe John was put in. And then they eventually found Joey McIntyre, who was like 12 years old. And they were all
So
like
cute.
16 to 18, I think. So I'm just going to preface this by saying I don't know a lot about New Kids because I actually didn't start listening to music until I was 14 years old.
Really?
So when I was a kid, my mom would always listen to the oldies because she was not allowed to listen to music as a kid.
Right.
So I guess the first boy band that I actually liked was when I was in high school, and Hanson came out with Oomba.
Oh my gosh.
So that was the first concert I went to, and I had the worst seats in the planet, like the Wilson Amphitheater on the lawn, way in the back. But like their dad came by, we're like, oh my God, we met Walker Hanson. And they gave a shout out to the people on the lawn, and we were so excited. Like nowadays, 100% could not sit that far away at a concert. I'm such a concert snob now. Like it's ridiculous. I need eye contact. I need you to recognize that I'm in the audience.
That's right. That's right. I mean, Cinzia literally knows the Backstreet Boys in person, and we're going to get to that in a second, but I have to tell you my New Kids on the Block story.
For sure.
I actually have a couple of things over here. So New Kids on the Block came to Hamilton a long time ago in the 90s, and I was so excited to meet them. And I woke up at 6:30 in the morning, my friends and I, and we scoured downtown Hamilton looking for, Joey McIntyre specifically, and maybe Jordan, and maybe Danny. And by the way, Danny is amazing in Blue Bloods. But anyways, I digress. And long story short,
Wahlberg.
What did I say?
Danny.
Oh my God, I did say Danny. I meant Donnie.
Well, he plays Danny in Blue Bloods.
I think that's
right.
And I always
Danny is the more like buff
Danny's
one.
the buff one, and Donnie does, So that's
Wahlburgers and all that jazz.
That's it. Yes. And I haven't been there for a hamburger yet. But this was really cool. This is from the Hamilton Spectator in 1990. And it's an article of me.
Shut up.
I'm sitting there. And basically it tells the story of how I woke up at 6:30 in the morning looking for New Kids on the Block, specifically Joey McIntyre. And what happened was we were there for like 8 hours standing outside a building. And someone came out and said, he was getting sandwiches for New Kids on the Block. So I was so excited. I made a little note. I don't know if you can see that there. I made a little note and put it on top of one of the sandwiches with the saran wrap over top of it, and never thought anything of it. And a book came out. I believe Lynn Goldsmith released a book of all these pictures of New Kids on the Block, and my sandwich ended up in the book. And then the newspaper did an article on me because my picture was in a New Kids on the Block book. And I know it's mine. It's like my handwriting, and you can kind of see my address imprinted on it. So they called me the Queen of Fanwich for New Kids on the Block. And I'll show you, this is how far I got to meeting them. So I don't know if you can see that, but I got to see their backs and I almost got to touch them.
That's amazing. What a great story.
It's kind of a cool story, but Joey McIntyre did not fall in love with me. In fact, years later, about 10 years ago, he ended up dating one of my friends.
Really?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And she was like, guess who I'm dating? And I was like, oh, I don't know. Bob? No. Joey McIntyre from New Kids on the Block. I couldn't believe it. And he would fly her to Boston.
That's so fun.
It was fun. And now he's married to someone else. But
yes.
I'm not jealous, at all. But
and she never took you on any of these trips.
I wouldn't take her. I'd be like,
true.
sorry, not happening. So that was kind of a cool thing. But for you, I mean, meeting these celebrities.
I actually have a newspaper story too.
I want to hear it.
So when Backstreet Boys actually were at Much Music, January of 2000.
Okay.
So they were there and they were doing like an intermittent interactive. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay. And I had never been to Much Music before. I didn't know anything. So we're like, whatever. So we ended up going there and it was freezing because it was January. They're like 10 hours. And we had made like some signs that said like, I love whoever. So obviously we had Nick and I think it was AJ and Brian. I had that. So we ended up taking a picture. And so we didn't know where to stand. So we picked the wrong side, but we were at the front row of the barricades.
Right.
Away from the window. So this photographer came by and he's like taking pictures of people. So he took a picture of me like holding this like sign, and he's just like not taking the picture, and he's just like, okay. And I'm like, so then eventually they had this thing where they had like they were showing pictures of them, so I was like, all right. So then he was like screaming. So when I was screaming, then he took the picture, right? Because he wanted a picture of us like being like, oh my god, yeah. So the best part is, so we didn't get to meet them then. So the next day, I get the Spectator and I open it up, and my picture's in there, and it was just a picture, and it didn't have my name or anything. And I was like so excited, so I was like showing everybody at school, oh my guys, I'm in the Spectator, cool. Look at me. And then someone's like, well, you're on the Toronto Star, and I was like, what? So then I go up to the library, and I was on the front page of the Toronto Star, and this is the best part about this, and I have this plaqued. Oh my gosh. It says, losing it, Cinzia DiFranco, 15 of Hamilton, like whatever. And then all the other wait like 12 hours to meet the Backstreet Boys. And then like there's like avalanche danger remains after people die, like there's fears of tainted blood, there's this, and there's just me like, hey! And then anytime they needed like a fan photo in the next couple of years, they would just take that out of stock photos. So like Britney Spears was in town one day, and there was like Ricky Martin, and then my picture, and I was just like,
that is so
yeah, that's right. So
cool.
When the first time I met the boys, I got them to sign it, but there was only 4 at the time because Kevin had taken a break. So this past cruise, I brought it and I got Kevin to sign it. So now all of them have signed it. It took 18 years to get it autographed, but it's pretty cool. So
now we're gonna talk about that cruise in a second, but I guess I've worked in radio a long time. You've worked in radio for a long time. We that's where we met years and years ago. And, there's something to be said about, when there's an artist that's famous and you think, oh my God, I love them. Like for me, it's like, oh my God, I love Joey McIntyre. I love Donnie Wahlberg. I love all the guys at BSB, Nick. And then you meet them, and I'm not saying them specifically, but how upsetting is it when you know this artist and
you think all these amazing
they're this
things.
amazing thing, and then they end up just not being who you thought they were. And so many people say that about so many artists, but you knowing Backstreet Boys back then and now, did you find that it was a disappointment?
Actually, yes, it was.
Wow, I didn't think you were going to say that.
I just thought of that. I was just like, the first time I met them, and it wasn't them at all. It was the people around them. So it was at the Molson Amphitheater, and I can't remember how much we paid, but we paid like a good amount of money, which now is like way cheaper than it costs to meet them. So it was like a sound check, and then you got a photo with them.
Okay.
Individual photos. But because it was Toronto, they oversold it to the extreme. So other venues had maybe 30 people there. So like that. For Toronto, there was 400. And it started an hour late. Oh. And by the time they started going through it, they were going to have to let people in soon, and it was happening inside the venue.
Right.
So they were rushing us through. So I had this like big autograph thing, like the plaque for them to sign, and they were like chatting to me, like, "Oh, I remember that, blah blah." And then everyone's like, "Turn around," and they were trying to make you take the picture and stuff, and then they were still signing it, and the security's like, "You have to leave now." I'm like, "They still have my thing." Like I was just so annoyed by it and put off meeting them. And this was,
but it wasn't it wasn't them.
It was they were the nicest people. It was
right.
The management team. And tip for any people who are meeting boy bands or anything for the first time, keep your back to the camera because you will get more time with them. Because sure, they may be yelling at you to turn around to take a picture, but if the boys are talking to you,
that is a great
keep your back to the camera and pretend you don't hear what they're saying.
I don't hear you, nothing.
You get an extra 30 seconds, whatever. So that, and then I actually have a funny story about the first time I met John Knight.
Okay.
So this was
from Backstreet Boys.
From New Kids.
From New Kids. Oh my gosh.
So,
I do know this. I don't know why I'm getting all confused. I'm flustered.
Too many good-looking men anyway.
I know.
So he's my favorite. So I went and I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to buy the VIP, the cheapest VIP that I can meet them. So it was a group of 10 pictures. So, and then you have to like make photo groups and make sure that you're standing next to your guy. And this one woman's like, somebody's going to stand next to Donnie. And like, it was just, anyway, so as we go through the line, John's at the end and he's not the most favorite member. Like obviously Joey and Donnie are probably in Jordan. So, and John's very quiet and everything. So I get to the end and he's there and I'm like, hey, and he's like, hey, what's up? And he's texting and I was just like,
no,
and I was like, I get to stand with you. And he's like, okay. And then somebody else came and then, and he said hi to them or whatever. And then he looks up and sees me. He's like, hey, how's it going? Like, and I was just like, how many times a day does he say, hey, how's it going? So at this point, he now realizes that I'm standing there because he's asked me twice, how's it going? And does not listen. And then he's like, so where are you from? And I'm like, oh, I'm from Hamilton. And he's like, oh, I think I have relatives in Hamilton. I'm like, okay. He's like, do I have relatives in Hamilton? And he's asking me. I'm like, I don't know. And then we like take a picture, and then I was like, what the heck? And I hug him and leave. They do have relatives in Hamilton.
You're kidding me.
Yeah, they do. Like
cousins?
I want to say it's like an aunt or something. I don't know. I'm not that crazy that I like looked it up, but their aunt or somebody's in a nursing home.
I need to know that.
But anyways, so then during the concert, I had a sign, and literally, and that's my thing. If you want to get recognized or noticed, always have a sign. And don't be like obnoxious with a giant sign. I like the small signs where you cut like it in quarters. And then I also like to bring a marker. And then if I get inspired mid-concert to write
cool.
something,
something
topical, I also do that. So literally all this sign said was John. So I'm like, okay, that was kind of a weird meet and greet, but I'm going to get like John.
Yeah.
So he comes out, and I was on the side that when they come into the crowd. So he comes out, and I'm like on the floor, and he's now facing everybody who's like up in the barricades. So I'm like, okay, he has to come back this way anyways. So he starts saying hi. So then he starts coming back. I'm like, okay, so I have my John sign. We're good. So then he goes, and then he like shakes the hand of the person beside me who is looking at Joey because he's next. And then sees my sign, goes over to me, and then like shakes the person on the other side. And I was just like, so I literally must have said this out loud, like WTF, but not that. And then he like turns and looks and sees the sign. He's like, oh. So then he like gives me a hug and a kiss on the cheek, and he's like, oh, thanks for coming or whatever, and then like goes, right? So I was like, okay, that's redeeming. So then I look around thinking, okay, hopefully someone has this on camera. They did not. I could never. I'm just like, are you kidding me? Anytime John kisses me or whatever, and I've met him a couple times since, and he's super nice. So I think it was just he was distracted by his phone during the meet and greet, but I was just like,
and I can imagine, all these women constantly, for sure, because they
sell, like, especially in, like, Toronto and stuff like that, they sell hundreds of these things, so they got to get them through as quick as possible.
Yeah. And, you know, I have a story about an artist that disappointed me. Okay. And I for years, I never told the story, and now I kind of feel like I can. And you may remember this, actually. So Cinzia and I both used to work at a radio station called Country 95.3. What? And during that time, we were really lucky to be able to meet some pretty amazing artists.
Country artists are so easy to meet.
Easy to meet, lovely people. And my crush was Keith Urban. I loved him.
Keith Urban.
Keith Urban.
I recall this story. Okay, sorry.
So
I might have a different version.
You might have a different version of the story. But I remember being so excited to actually interview him. And they gave me the chance, and I didn't want to mess it up. And I had all my questions ready. And, you know, we go to sit down, and Keith's manager says, you can't ask him this, and you can't ask him this, and you can't do this, and talk about this or this. And I go,
well, there's all my questions.
Okay, so what did you have for breakfast this morning? Like, I was so scared. And he was kind of mean.
Oh, really?
And I couldn't get a good interview. I was really upset. And I walked away thinking, wow, I have loved you and dreamed about you, bought all your merch, bought all your, you know, CDs and your music and downloaded everything. And, you know, and you didn't give me a time of day. And like, I'm the one that plays your music. So
exactly.
I was so crushed.
No, for
and
sure.
Then about, I don't know, maybe a year and a half, 2 years later, I have to interview him again. I'm like, oh God. And I was just really not in the mood to do it. I show up, he's there. Hello, darling. Hey, babe. How's it going? Have a seat. Let's talk. I'm like, what happened? And then as soon as I interviewed him, I found out after that, that's when all of a sudden it was Keith's with Nicole Kidman. Keith's not, you know, doing, you know, abusing alcohol and drugs and whatever else he was doing. And what an absolute change in personality. Okay. So when I look at it now, and I went back and looked at the timeline, I got Keith when he was going through his most horrible time. He was probably lonely. He was frustrated. He was self-medicating. He didn't have a good woman. And then this woman walks in and says, no more drugs, no more booze. You know, if you want me, you smarten up. And now he's so happy. And then I interviewed him a third time, and he was just exactly the way that I imagined him to be, and he was an absolute dream. And he's back on top now. He's back on top, baby, on my list.
Everybody knows who he is, for sure.
You know, and he's unbelievable. So that was kind of my little story. But like,
he was the first artist I met because I was not working for the radio station yet, and they needed some people. Olivia needed some people on the street team. So then they're like, "Hey, do you want to take a picture with this Keith Urban guy?" And I was like, All right, I have no. And I, honest to God, I thought he was gay. This was like a week before, like the whole
Keith
Nicole.
Urban?
Yeah, I had no idea who he was. We're up there, and so all of the country people were there, and I was standing beside him, and he had his arm around me, and then. I don't know if it was you.
Yeah, it was probably
Sam.
me.
It
Did
was
I
either
push
Sam
you out
or the friend? She like pushes her way in, and, like pushes me off. So it was you, and I want to say your friend was like Christine or something.
Yeah,
I can't remember. But the two of them are now like have commandeered Keith Urban.
Yeah.
And pushed us out. And
Yeah.
like, doesn't matter. We're cropping everybody else out anyways. And I was dying. I was like,
yeah,
what is
no,
this?
I was, I probably did because he was my favorite and I never had a picture
It
with
was
him.
so funny.
And I'm
I
so
was
sorry,
like,
Cinzia.
No,
I'm
that was, like,
apologizing
it
in
made
public.
my day because I had no idea who he was, so I didn't really care if I was standing next to him. But it was just like it was the funniest thing ever. And then Olivia's like, "Oh, do you want to stay?" I'm like, "Is this guy even famous?" She's like, "He's like the NSYNC of country music.
Yeah.
Like, you want to stay?" So I was like, "Okay." And then I had no idea what any of his songs were, and I'm like, "Meh."
And Olivia, by the way, worked in promotions
Yes.
at Country 95.3, that station out of Toronto in Hamilton. So, I'm sorry I did that.
It
And
was
you know
hilarious.
What? Normally,
it, like, brings me such great joy every time I look at that picture. I'm like, "Oh, this is really like."
and I don't usually care
But it
about
was
meeting
so
anybody,
funny.
but him, I was just
It
like,
was
I just
so
want
funny.
him to be near me because
Yeah.
I thought maybe.
My other thing when I worked at the country station, I would take a picture with any celebrity that came in just in case they became famous. So I was just like, whatever. But I also would like to point out that working in radio for 12 years has not helped me at all to meet any boy bands. This is all I've had to do it myself, which
Really?
yes. Like, you'd think they're like, oh, you get to meet them because you work in radio. I'm like, no, I travel to distant places and pay money. That's how I
So
meet
let's
them.
talk about this because I know there's a lot of people out there, and there has been some of my friends that say, "Oh my God, that Cinzia girl, I saw her with Nick from the Backstreet Boys and
lot of pictures of
Howie, and I saw her with, tell somebody how you can. So if I have a boy band right now in mind that I want to meet, how do I do it? Give
Okay.
me some tips and tricks on how we can do it.
Like back in the olden days, the only way you could meet them is if you won a radio station contest or something. And there's one of our episodes is my friend Diane telling us
on your podcast,
on
Boy Band Break,
about the first time she met O-Town and how like it was a great experience, but the radio station said they were going to take pictures and they never sent her a picture. So for years, so when we met O-Town in the summer, we told them this story, and then they were like, oh, and then we took a bunch of pictures. It was great. But nowadays there's so many things, like so many fan clubs, and you can just join up there. A lot of them will do, instead of just the concert tickets, the meet and greet experience is their main thing now. And they're a lot more approachable than, say, like Beyonce or something like that. You probably can't meet her, or if you're going to meet her, it's going to cost you thousands and thousands of dollars.
Right.
So the boy bands will either do like a sound check. To the O-Town one we did, it was really cool. It was at a park, and it was a sound check like actually outside. They did a couple of songs acoustically, and then they took pictures with everybody, and they had like a chat. Backstreet's done that a bunch of times, but I know it. Not a good way to give away this, but the easiest way to meet boy band members and the cheapest and best way is to go to conventions. So,
like Comic-Con?
Comic-Cons and things. So Nick Carter.
That is a great
A couple
piece
years
of
ago,
info.
he did this. He wrote a movie, and it's called Dead 7, and Sci-Fi ended up picking it up. But essentially, what it is, it's like a Western zombie movie. And in it, so it's Nick and AJ and Howie from the Backstreet Boys, Chris and Joey from NSYNC, Jeff Timmons from 98 Degrees,
What?
like 4 of the 5 O-Town members, like, and John Cicada and stuff. And it's just like, it's such a good, and they play it all straight, so they're not playing it comical, but there's all these boy banders playing.
That is so cool.
Because they did this, now a lot of conventions will be like, oh, hey, you were in a zombie thing. Come to our Walker Stalker convention. Come to this. So that's how, so they usually will go for like the weekend, and then you just kind of like pay money. Like usually it depends on the convention.
Yeah, usually
it's about $40 for a picture, $40 for an autograph, or $60 for both.
So how much is it to get into actual convention? Hundreds?
It also depends on the convention. Like some of them you can get like a one-day pass for like $30 or something.
Oh, so $30 to get in, and then $40 for a picture.
Yeah. So
hey, I would do that.
Pretty good. And they usually, especially if the line's not long, they'll talk to you for a while. And another tip is don't act like a crazy person. So just don't be like, oh my God, I love you. Just be like, hey dude, how's it going? Like I had an ongoing thing with Nick Carter about like my boss and his job. Like, it was like every time I met him over the like a year, I was like an update of this like random, like it started off, I'm not going to do the whole story, but essentially it started off where I was going on a road trip for Nick, and I sent it out to the staff.
Nick Carter.
Nick Carter of the Backstreet Boys.
Okay.
He does a lot of solo stuff, but he still stays together. Like, they're the only boy band who hasn't broken up. So they've been together. It'll be 26 years in April.
Wow, that's amazing.
So like at one point, Kevin did leave for about 6 years because he wanted to focus on his family, but then he came back. But the band has been consistently together. So they're one of our favorite. We talk about them in pretty much almost every episode, but not like just in reference. So anyways, it was just like, I'd sent a picture saying like, hey, I want to recreate this picture of, it was like Nick and me hugging in like a prom style picture. So then my boss sends back Nick's mugshot from when he got drunk and fought a bouncer and lost. And so I thought,
are we allowed to talk about that?
I don't know. It's fine. So anyway, so I thought it would be funny to print that out and get Nick to sign it for my boss.
Oh my goodness.
So I ended up doing that. And I was just like, and my friend, so we had met up in Boston with our other friend from West Virginia. She's like, oh yeah, he's over the arrest. He's fine. It's cool. Da, da, da. He talks about it in concert. So he didn't talk about it in Boston, and he didn't talk about it in Montreal. And then in Toronto, we were doing like a Nick lunch. So that's another thing. He does like lunches. So
Nick Carter does?
Yeah, so he'll like he's done it a few times. So there'll be like some food and stuff, and then he'll just either like play a few songs and Q&A and take pictures with everybody. So it's like, it's a lot of fun. Like it's a more intimate experience. There's maybe like,
and you pay for that too,
you
right?
do.
But how do you find out about that? Is
so
that
like
fan
on
club
their
stuff?
fan club stuff or
Okay.
Facebook, Twitter, like they're very into social media. A lot of the boy bands. It's so much like, just follow them. It's very easy to find what they're doing and things like that. So he comes there and he have this picture, and I was like, hey buddy, and he's like, hey, I'm like, so fast, could you do something? Are you gonna get mad at me? He's like, no. I'm like, cool, can you sign this for my boss? So I kind of like slide the mugshot.
And it was the picture
it was
of
the
him.
mugshot. Yeah.
Oh,
And
my
he looked
goodness.
very handsome in it, by the way.
He did.
Yeah, it's blue.
Yeah.
So it was like, hey Mike, give Cinzia a raise, whatever, right? So then I gave it to my boss, and he's like, yeah, you're not getting a raise like from this picture. But it was pretty funny. So then and I said like, like, even though this is made out to you, if I ever get fired, you're giving me the picture. He's like, cool. So then we had some downsizing a few months later, and then he ends up getting let go.
Oh no. Did he give you the picture?
So then I had the picture. I'm like, okay, well, I guess since you're the one who got fired, like, here you go. So I give it to him. And then a few months after that, I go to Kentucky to go see Nick at a convention. And I was like, hey, I don't know if you remember, but like earlier this year, you signed this autograph for my boss. And anyways, he got fired. And he's like, he got fired. And I'm like, a really extreme reaction from a guy who doesn't know him. And he's like, oh my God, he got fired because of me. And I was like, yeah, I probably should have worded that differently. I was like, not because of you, but whatever. So anyways, he's like, oh my God. He's like, well, I hope he's okay, blah, blah, blah. Like, hope he gets a job. So I come back and I'm like, hey, Nick is concerned about your job prospects. And he's like, okay. And then fast forward when he did get a job. So then I ran into Nick again and got him I held up a sign saying like, congrats on the new gig. So sent that to him. And then when he poached me to go work for the other company, I had gone to Atlanta for a convention. So I got Nick to record like a video congratulating him on working with me again. So it was just like really funny. So
Nick is good like that. Like
he's
doing
like, honest to God, he is like, see if I have a picture of he is so good at letting us dress him up or do whatever he wants. I'd be like, hey, I have the one.
Wait, so when you're talking about like meet and greet, so when you're standing there, you dress him up?
Yeah, so let me see if I can find the one picture.
I don't understand. You have to show me a picture.
Essentially, it was Halloween, so we dressed up as Beanie Babies.
Oh my gosh.
We made him a little like thing, and it had a little like ears. So we just kind of went in, and he just stood still.
Gosh.
I put the ears on him,
and there's another one. Look at his face is like.
His face is because inside it actually says that. Because he bailed on the last day of this convention, so he said something about he sucks because he bailed. So we're like, just open it up, don't read it. So then he looked down and read it, and he was just like,
But that's so cute, and you have all of these like all autographed, and they're all like in hard plastic. So that's kind of cool. So you paid for this picture.
So we did, and then but we divided the cost between the four of us. So it's not too bad. So like honestly, cons are very like.
So this was at a Comic-Con.
That was at a Comic-Con.
So look how close.
Chicago.
I mean, that's so cool though, because people like would love to do this, and I bet you they don't know that little secret. Let's see this one.
This one is a fun one. So this was a Walker Stalker convention, so it's Walking Dead, and we don't watch The Walking Dead, but Nick was going to be there. So Diane and myself ended up going, and we're like, dude, we've kind of run out of ideas because we like to hold like pictures and
like props
and signs, because it just gets kind of boring to always just kind of like smile and pose, right? So So we're like, hey, we need to come up with something to do. And he's like, well, we're at a Walking Dead convention. How about something like this? We're like, dude, we don't watch the show.
That's so cute.
And he's like, look around you. I was like, what do you mean? Like one of those bat
bats.
thingies? And he's like, did you just call it a bat thingy?
Oh, that's why the sign says,
so I was
no.
like, Lucille. He's like, okay, you've redeemed yourself. But
Okay.
it was just like, so then I'm like, I'm not buying one of these. So like Hotel Crafts, Diane and I went to like Five Below and got like paint and baseball bats and duct tape and made these like bats for $5. And then
That's so fun.
like hit him with him the next day. And it was just really funny.
This picture here, it looks like they're, I don't know, you've
So
dressed them
that's-
up or something?
Yes. So they're very good at, we're like, hey, these are our props. This is what we're going to use. Howie's like, I'm doing the maple syrup. So this is in Tennessee on Canada Day.
So Howie, for those that are
From the back-
listening,
so this is
he's
the Backstreet Boys.
drinking.
Maple syrup with
And
thumbs
then
up.
AJ, what's he doing in this picture?
I think he might be holding the beaver. No, he's holding the moose. Yeah, we had a
Moose.
stuffed moose.
And tell everybody what Nick is doing in
Nick
this
is
photo.
wearing a Canada flag as a cape and a hockey stick. Diane's drinking Tim Hortons and have
really
the chips
cool.
and stuff like that. So essentially, they just kind of like stand there and let us dress them up. So we had told them ahead of time, hey, we're going to do it's a Canada Day. Here's our theme. So as we were walking around the corner to get to the photo, they saw it was us. So they break out into South Park's Blame Canada.
Oh, blame Canada.
And they just start like, and then we gave Nick the hockey stick and he's like, he just stands there, lets us decorate him and stuff. And it was just like the funniest picture. And like the
So
photographer was like killing himself laughing. It was good times. And then
But it's so cool because you have all of these kind
Inside
of
jokes.
reminders and I was gonna say
Yeah.
inside jokes and when you're standing in line they must recognize you because you've got these purple glasses on, you've kind of got like purple in your
find that
hair.
They probably recognize like they definitely don't say, hey, Cinzia, how's it going? Because like I don't say, hey, it's Cinzia. Like,
Right,
whatever,
right.
But like, for example, this one, when we were in Chicago, Diane and I hadn't seen Nick in like 6 months or something. And we're like, oh, I don't know if he'll recognize us. And as you start going to these conventions, you start to recognize some of the regulars. So we have these, like people from like Florida and Chicago and things like that. We're from Toronto-y area and stuff. So we're like, we're not recognizing any. And this was a very last minute convention. He announced it like 2 weeks before. So we're like, okay. So we didn't, and his bodyguard Mike was there too. And we haven't seen him in ages. And we're like, Mike, like love their bodyguards, the nicest people. Always give them hugs. But anyway, so as we turned the corner, Nick looked up and saw us and he's like, my peeps, come here, and like give me a hug. And I was just like,
how
okay.
great do you feel?
That was like, honest to God, like one of my most favorite moments. I was like, oh my God, he like actually recognizes us.
Because when you were
like,
younger, you must be like, oh my God, I love them. I want to
As a
meet them.
14-year-old,
and
you're
now they
not-
know you.
Yeah,
like that's
like in high school, you had to pick NSYNC or Backstreet Boys. So even though Backstreet Boys was the first band I saw, I was actually Team NSYNC with Chris. And
Yes.
Also, funny story my friend Sophia laughs at all the time is when Chris was at this convention in Kentucky a couple years ago. So it was Chris and Joey from NSYNC and Nick and AJ from the Backstreet Boys. And I actually have a picture of the four of them together with me. And I have Nick holding a sign that says, Cinzia, I thought I was your favorite, as I'm like hugging Chris. So
That's
I'll
cute.
send you that picture. It's pretty funny. But, and I always make fun of people that cry when they meet boy. Not make, everybody expresses their emotions
But you mean
differently.
like hysterically?
And I'm just
cry?
like, okay, like they're just people, like chill, right? So as I'm there, my friend Sophia was like bugging me all morning. She's like, oh, you're gonna meet Chris. And I had met him before. Like my sister Lydia and I had flown to Miami because they used to do a thing called Challenge for the Children.
Okay.
So it was like NSYNC versus like other celebrities. And
Okay,
they would
yeah,
do like a
yeah.
basketball game and like all this other stuff. So I have met Chris before and I have met many celebrities over my life. So she was just like, whatever. So then I'm just standing there talking and Nick's there. And Chris starts walking. First I don't click that it's Chris. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh my God, and I gasp. And then my eyes start welling up and I start freaking crying. So Sophia sees this, starts laughing at me and like filming me and posting it.
Oh, that's
She's like, oh, look at you.
amazing.
But like, honest to God. So then I was like, guys, they're like, we should go meet Chris. And then my other friend was like, what the heck's wrong with you? She's like, she just saw Chris. She's like, Chris from
And she's
NSYNC?
crying.
Like, okay. So she gave me her pass to meet him. So, because we had done a VIP that got you all these other things. So then they're like, okay, let's go meet him now. I'm like, I need to calm down. So let's go talk to Nick Carter. I need to calm down, so I'm going to go talk to Nick Carter. Whereas
did
other
he
people,
calm you down?
He did. It was pretty entertaining. And they were laughing at me. They're like, oh, Cinzia, thanks you for making your movie. And he's like, why? She's like, oh, because Chris came out of nowhere. And he's like looking at me like I have 3 heads. I'm like, whatever. And actually, but when I met Chris, nicest guy in the world, because that was another thing, as you had said earlier, like, oh my God, I've never actually
That's
met
right. What are
him.
they going to
How's
be
he gonna
like?
Super nice guy, like big hugs, like hilarious. There was also like a music thing at one point. Like it was like not like a dance, but it was like hang out with them. And then like Living on a Prayer was playing, so we were like singing that back and forth to each other.
Like with them, one-on-one.
With Chris. Oh, at that particular convention too, Nick had lunch with us. Like there was no other seats. And so again, this was
Don't tell me it's like that, you know, when you're at school and you've got your tray and you're looking around for a place to sit and everyone's looking like, you ain't sitting with me. Please don't tell me it was that kind of thing.
It was legit that.
No!
That legit happened. So he was just wearing like a gray t-shirt and he had just shaved his hair, whatever. But like everybody else at this convention is all dressed up in like superheroes and things like that. And we had went to go get lunch, so we're there. And there was one empty table. So Sophia and Diane ran to go get this table and I was doing something else. And as I come back and I'm walking towards the table and I'm like, oh, okay, Sophia and Diane are there. And I'm like, oh, there's somebody else at the table. And I look, and it's Nick Carter and his handler, because she came at the same time as us. And I was like, looking, I'm like, I'm not going to make a big deal here. I'm just going to sit down and pretend that this is normal. So I guess what had happened was Sophia and Diane had got this table, and Nick's walking with his tray and was like, oh my God, I have nowhere to sit. And they're like, buddy, come sit with us. And he's like, okay. So he sits down, and his handler sits down, and she's like looking at the three of us and looking at Nick. She's like, did you want to go somewhere else to sit, you know, backstage? And he's like, no, I'm cool. I'm hanging with my friends. And then we're like, yeah, that's right, friends. And like, it was just like so funny. And obviously we weren't going to take a picture at that point. We look like losers, right? But we're like, oh, clearly there's other people around who have seen this happen. Not one person saw this happen until after.
But you know it happened.
But we know it happened. And it was like so much fun. Like totally nicest guy, like super nice guy. I really enjoyed it.
So if you had to basically pick one boy band member from anybody you've ever met back then or now, who would you say is the nicest?
Definitely Nick, yeah.
Who would you say is the meanest?
I've never really had any like bad encounters with people. 98 Degrees, shockingly super nice guys as well. Like, because I was originally assigned to, because I had volunteered at this convention, so I was originally assigned to be with Jeff Timmons, and I was, but then
sorry, Jeff.
I don't know why, because nicest guy, wonderful guy, always like tweets us and stuff. But anyway, so he was just like super nice guy, and then I ended up, they rescheduled, and I was working with Chris, which was great, but I don't know, he was in a kind of a mood that weekend. But like 98 Degrees, super nice. Like at one point, Drew is just like leaning up against me. We're just like leaning beside each other. And then like, and like, so it was Drew, Justin, and Jeff. And like, super cool. I also actually met Jeff and Eric from O-Town at a Backstreet Boys movie premiere in LA. So we didn't see the Backstreet Boys there, but we met those two. And that's another funny story. But
and you know what? As you're talking, maybe it's just, I can't remember the O-Town song.
So they had Liquid Dreams.
Yeah,
like
I can't remember. I don't remember how it goes.
I dream about a girl that's mix of Destiny's Child.
Yeah.
So they had that one. They had like they had a lot of good songs, but they've actually come out with some songs recently that are really good. Playing with Fire and things like that. So the four of them are doing like a really good kind of, and they, out of all the boy bands, they have the coolest experiences for fans. So they did a laser tag thing in New York, so you could play laser. Like Nick's done bowling and stuff. Yeah, but like they actually like drafted. Nick Carter? He did bowling in Boston. We didn't do that instead of the lunch. It was a bowling.
So, but you pay for that.
You pay money, and then you go, and then you get to hang out with him and take pictures and eat food and stuff like that. So like O-Town did this thing, and I wanted to go so bad, but it was a little bit pricey, and also New York City. But they actually had, I think it was only up to 30 people, and then they drafted them onto their teams ahead of time, and then they had this whole like laser tag thing. They're doing a thing in Nashville in February where they're actually doing a games night at their like house or wherever they're staying in Nashville, and then you actually get to play like board games and stuff.
That would be O-Town. Super fun.
And I was just like, I need to do this immediately, and then you can't. But I'm like, I can't convince.
But
people.
How much would it be to do something? Like,
that's a bit pricey. So
like what? Give me a ballpark.
That one is $750. Which, if you have the money, it's amazing.
And so for $750,
you get to hang out with O-Town, eat with them, and play board games.
Okay, so for that, and we talked about the conventions, like $30 to get in ish US dollars, $40 per pitcher ish. And then the cruises. How much is a cruise? Because and do you actually get to like hang with them?
The cruises are amazing and super fun. So I did the first 3. Then
And this is BSB because
Backstreet Boys.
New Kids on the Block
New Kids
have
on the Block
a
started the
TV
cruising.
show, don't
yes,
they?
They have Rock the Boat.
Yeah.
Have never been able to get on a New Kids cruise.
You've tried?
I have, and then I can't find anyone to go with me either. And to pay like the single price is kind of like, or you could do, I don't know. So
what are we looking cost wise?
What's funny is that I had tweeted John Knight the one time and was like, "Oh, I really wish I could go on one of these cruises one of these days." And he tweeted me back and he's like, "We're not getting any younger." And a bunch of laughing faces are like, "This is amazing." So, you can get I like to get the Leonardo DiCaprio deck, if you will. So that is like your internal, like smallest room available, cheap, because you don't really spend much time in the room.
Right. True.
I think you can get that for about $800 plus taxes and stuff.
Does that include your flight?
It does not include your flight.
Okay.
So you do need a flight and hotel and stuff. But then there's other rooms that are like $6,000 or whatever. And you get front row and you get VIP for certain things. I personally am like, you know what?
I would hope that
as
they
much
would
as I'd enjoy that, I don't
bathe
like a lap
me and
dance or
feed
something.
me.
Yeah, no,
for that much money, you know.
But the cruises, if you're gonna do a cruise, it's better cost than doing like a VIP at a concert, right? Because at a VIP at a concert, you see them for a few minutes, you take your picture, which takes like 30 seconds, and then you're done. Where a cruise, you're literally stuck on a boat with them for like 3 or 4 days. So included in that, so I went on the very first Backstreet Boys cruise, and that was actually only a half charter. So what they did, I forget, let's say there was like 2,000 people can fit on a boat. So they had 1,000 people, and we did everything together. So we did all the games together, all the stuff.
Like all the people on the boat.
Yes, so only like and then all these other people had no idea it was a Backstreet Boys cruise, and then so they were a little bit inconvenienced by us like taking over things and stuff like that. But they also got to meet the Backstreet Boys for free and stuff. So the cool part about the cruise is. So now every other cruise since then, it's been a full charter. So they split us into 2 groups. So each group gets to do like the same amount of things.
Right.
But, yeah. So you get a full concert. You get meet and greet pictures. Usually in groups. The first year, I think it was groups of 10. Now it's like groups of 5. So you each get to stand next to a boy. Then they have a game show, which is usually something funny. So like, let's make a deal. So they have like a bunch of different game shows.
Yeah.
And then they all have nightly deck parties. So you have like different themes. So New Kids does this as well. So each night is a different, like Millennium Night was on the last cruise. So everybody had to wear white. That was an amazing night.
And do they show up to? They show up.
So they show up to those. So they perform.
They perform.
Yeah,
okay.
They perform. So for that one, they actually performed the entire Millennium album.
Wow.
From start to finish, which they have not done in concert like ever. And it was White Night. And Nick and AJ jumped into the pool and invited people to jump into the pool with them. So let me tell you, I was in the pool with Nick Carter. And we were like swimming together and like, hugging Nick Carter and like whatever. So
wait, whoa.
In the water.
So
and it was lovely.
I hold on. You're telling me
yes
that you jumped in a pool
fully clothed
and you were
with
hugging
a shirtless Nick Carter.
Wet.
Yes.
Nick Carter, and you were hugging him in the pool?
He was hugging people. He was going around and hugging everybody. It was great. It was fantastic. He was lying on his back at one point and was like holding his leg. Like it was fun. And then AJ did it. So they did it like 2 or 3 times. My friend Diane does not like to get wet or dirty. And she's a big Nick fan. So you could definitely see like things where like, I'm like, but did you want to go in? She's like, I'm not getting in the pool. I'm like, hold my things. I'm like, jump right in. It was so much fun. So, and then even on the first day, like we just got on there. Diane was super tired. So she went to go sleep because she hadn't slept all night. And Sophia and I had come in the day before. So we ended up going, and we found Nick like immediately and took a picture with him and then went to go wake up Diane. And that was like waking the devil. And then it did not work and she missed it. But throughout the entire cruise, we were able to get pictures of everything and every one of them. And then Sophia and I actually got to play on the game show with Brian and his wife Leanne. So it was it's just like so much fun. There's like so many fun things to do on a cruise. Usually there's like a beach party. They've done that in the past. They've done like...
But just to hear that
they're just very personable. Obviously, you don't want to be like the weirdo who hangs out their door, which we do not, but like other people do. But it's just like you decorate your doors and you have like costumes and fun things. And it's just like a very fun, like you meet your friends that you've talked to online from literally all over the world. So,
well, I always see these pictures of you and and Nick, and I'm always like, how is she doing this? Like, so I thought maybe, honestly, I think a lot of people may think this too. And that you just like hang outside their hotel doors
No,
or something, but
never done
it's
that.
not like that anymore.
No.
So now you can actually like
You
meet
can actually,
these
they'll be like,
fans.
here's where we're going to be. Come. Like one of the Nick's autograph signings he did, which he didn't want to do an autograph. He just literally just wanted to take pictures with people. So $20 or whatever for a CD and you got a picture with Nick. Like that was our cheapest meet and greet ever. And I was just like, the boys actually just did for their new album that just came out, DNA, that came out January 25th. They did a whole thing in New York City where they had a whole bunch of things and they had an autograph signing for that. So like literally for the cost of a CD, which I think was $12.88, they've definitely gone down in price since we were buying them. You could meet all of them. So there obviously are the more expensive experiences, but if you just know where to be and what to do and you don't mind waiting a little while in line or whatever, you can totally meet whoever you want.
I wanted to ask you quickly. I don't want to take away from our conversation about boy bands, but I follow Aaron Carter, which is Nick Carter's little brother, on social media. And I obviously don't want to take a turn into something else, but give me like a minute of what you think about Aaron Carter and what he's going through, because it seems to me that he's going through something, but I could be wrong.
He seems to be doing much better now. We've also met Aaron a bunch of times over the years. He's done little meet and greets, like in Toronto. We had a pizza place that we went to and like hung out with him.
Yeah.
He was in the Fantastics in New York City, so my friend Sophia and I went a few times to go see him. Honestly, I just feel like he hasn't had the best family structure, obviously with their parents. And then with Leslie, his sister, passed away, I want to say 5 or 6 years ago. She just passed away recently. The anniversary was just recently. That's
got to be hard.
It's got to be hard not to really have, and because he had been in the business since 7 years old, right? So Nick was already part of the Backstreet Boys. He ended up kind of going through there, the whole Lou Pearlman, who knows, all that other stuff. So honestly, he definitely has gone through some bad times, and he definitely should not be tweeting at certain times of day and stuff. But I think he's on a better course right now.
I feel like he is.
He has a new girlfriend that seems to be like very well for him and stuff, and he like is very interested in his music and stuff. So wish Aaron all the best. And I've met him, and every time I've met him, honest to God, he's been like the sweetest guy ever. He's never been a jerk. He's always like, I'm going to give you a hug. I'm going to talk to you. You're going to ask me a weird question. I'm going to answer it truthfully. Like, he's a very genuine person. So, but I just feel that a lot of the times the media just blows things up. And people just see like his Twitter rants or something and are like, dude, like, he's not as crazy or whatever as people say. So I just think he's been dealt a really hard life, and it's hard to, when you grow up in the spotlight as a kid, you don't know who to trust and things like that. So, and that's why I think that actually as a boy band, it's more cohesive because you have 4 other members there watching your back. So
and they're going through the same thing.
They're going through the same thing as you. They're like how Kevin, he just needed to leave the group. He wasn't there and they went, but they were fine with that. Whereas, and obviously having a boy band with you, kind of like you fight a lot and things like that, like a regular family, but at least you have a support system. Right. And I feel like Aaron really, because he was a solo artist, really, and that's the thing, like the Justin Biebers of the world, like Miley Cyrus, all these other people.
Feel alone.
You're alone. You're always surrounded by adults who just want to make money off of you, and they don't really they don't have your back. So that's why I think a lot of the boy bands are really good at keeping together and being like that.
Do you like Justin Bieber?
Yeah, don't mind him. I hate Justin Timberlake, if that's the question. I hate him, and it's a theme of and I know everybody loves him. I posted something the other day, like, happy birthday to the guy who broke up in Sync. Like, I have such bitterness towards
so this is
him.
why you don't like him. You don't like him because he's an awful person. You don't...
You know what? Honestly, he's the one that I've met a few times that I've had bad experiences with.
No.
Like, I just...
Like, I'm so great. Bow down to me.
So, like, this is the first time I met any boy band.
Okay, she's pulling out a photo right now
so this is
that would be of NSYNC, and
April
it's autographed.
17th, 1998.
My birthday
at the Pickering Town Center, which was hilarious. We have a story about that on one of the podcasts. But Chris is my favorite. I asked him for a hug. The security wouldn't let him, so he wrote love. It was great.
I'll grab that and go
so
like
just a really quick. So I get there. I'm like, hey, Chris, I've been there like 3.5 hours on a train to see you. Like, can I have a hug? He's like, sure. And then he went to give me a hug. And then security was like, no. So he wrote love and like took my hand and said, like, it's nice to meet you. And then I think it was JC was next, and he was like really quiet. And by the way, I hate this picture. It's the ugliest picture of them. But it was my first time going to going to an autograph signing, so I didn't know you had to bring something.
And it's from Bop Magazine.
Bop Magazine.
Do you remember Bop?
Used to Bop, BB, Teen, all those other ones. So my friend's like, "Oh, I have extras of this one here. Take it."
So
I was like, "Okay,
Justin
sure."
in the middle.
So JC was next, and he kind of looked up and saw I had tears in my eyes because I wasn't hugging Chris. So then I was like, "Okay." So then I went to Joey, and he's like, "Hey, how's it going?" And I'm like, "Oh, hey." And I kind of was like, shook his hand. I'm like, "Live in the moment, Cinzia. Like, you're here with NSYNC right now." So then I remember like, oh my God, I didn't touch JC. So I remember like reaching out to like touch his hand. I'm like, okay, I touched JC. We're good.
Nice.
And Joey had shook my hand. And then I get to Lance, and Lance is like, "Hey," and he goes to give me a handshake, but he's holding a Sharpie in his hand at that time. So he had a very firm handshake. So now my hand is like crushed. And I was like, I'm in so much pain, but Lance Bass from NSYNC is shaking my hand right now.
Right.
So I'm just going to grin and bear it type thing. And then I get to Justin. He was my friend Gina's favorite. And then just like looking up.
I'm like, what? What are you doing? Like,
he like did not even acknowledge that I was there. Not that I cared because
wait, this guy?
Justin did not acknowledge I was there. So he like signed it or whatever, and he's just like looking over at the girls and stuff. And I'm like, okay, whatever. Like my friend Gina had a great experience because Justin was her favorite. So she said, "Thank you." And he was like, "No, thank you." And she like for years, this was like her favorite thing. Like,
was
oh my
he being
God.
sarcastic?
No, I think he was being nice, but like I was just like, whatever. And because I was a Chris fan and Chris was the least liked member of NSYNC, a lot of like Justin fans were like, "Oh, you're such a loser that you like Chris, blah, blah, blah." And I'm like, listen, biatches. My odds with Chris are way better than your odds with Justin.
That's right.
So like, whatever.
That's right.
And he was
Back
funny
off.
and he was great and he's always. And then another time when we were at the Challenge for the Children, we were trying to get to the pool and we just wanted to go swimming. So it was me and my sister and these two other girls that we had met. And Justin just happened to be there as well in the hallway. And we did not care about Justin because we were just going to the pool.
Right.
And then like, and granted, it could have been his people. But they're just like, you're not allowed to go down this hallway. We're like, we literally just want to go to the pool. And they're like, no, you can't be here and you can't look at Justin or whatever. Because he was like coming down the hall. So we had to like put ourselves against the wall as Justin came so he could use the friggin' elevators. And then we're like.
That's a horrible experience.
So then we're just like, okay, well, enjoy. We're like, well. And they're like, don't talk to him or whatever. So I was like, okay, well, good luck at the game. Because it was a basketball game. He's like, yeah, thanks, whatever. And then gets in the elevator. It was like bouncing. And I'm just like.
That's just, I don't like hearing
like,
that.
I
Suck it.
Like, so granted, other people have had good experiences with Justin, but just like those types of things. And then the whole like Lance was supposed to go to outer space. He was training in Russia with the cosmonauts to do like they didn't have all the money for it yet. But Justin was like, "You're breaking up NSYNC," like because he was there for 6 months. Lance had surgery on his heart to correct a problem that wasn't a necessary one, so he could go. He learned Russian. He was doing all their training, and then Justin's like, "You need to come back because you're part of this group, and you need to." So Lance is like, "Okay." Then he flies back, only for like 6 months later for Justin to break up the group.
Like, I didn't know that story.
So they broke up and Lance missed his chance of going to outer space because Justin wanted to be a solo artist and was just being an ass. Like, I'm sorry.
That really.
But it's just like, so that those are like the bitterness I hold towards Justin. And also the fact that all the Justin fans were mean to me all my life. So I also feel like part bitterness there. But yeah, there's no redeeming quality.
All right. So before we wrap this up, I ask all my guests, name 3 things that you're grateful for. It could be anything.
Okay, well, obviously, I am grateful for family and friends. Mm-hmm. Especially, like, Sophia and Diane are my BSB BFFs, but really my best friends. And we've had a lot of really great experiences over the years, so I also am very grateful for all the boy bands for giving us these experiences, because I would not have met them if it wasn't for the Backstreet Boys.
Right.
And I'm just grateful that I live in Canada and I work at a radio station and it's a lot of fun and I just enjoy the people I meet and I don't know.
What radio station do you work at?
Currently I work at 6 radio stations. So Funny 820, which is the studio that we use to record our podcast and sometimes take them off the air by accident. 1029 K-Light and TSN 1150 in Hamilton. And then in St. Catharines we have 1057 Easy Rock, Hits 97.7 and 610 CKTB. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. I'm sales coordinator, and I get to like do a lot of fun stuff
That
between the two
sounds
markets.
like a lot of fun.
It is a lot of fun. It is an awesome job. Great people.
So tell everybody once again the name of your podcast and how they can check it out. So if you love boy bands, I've listened to a few episodes and really informative, funny.
So the podcast is called Boy Band Break, so BREAK. And all the episodes are between like 20 and 45 minutes. And yeah, so you can go to Facebook and look up Boy Band Break, Twitter, Instagram, SoundCloud, pretty much all of the things, iTunes, like
Google,
so, yeah,
podcasts,
so it's good.
you're everywhere. Boy Band
we're always
Break.
like looking for new suggestions or different boy bands that you want us to profile and stuff. So some episodes are about specific boy bands. Some are about like genres, like British boy bands. Some things are just like funny, like would you rather, or like who would you save in this case, and things like that. So it's just, we have a lot of fun, and it's a lot of fun. So it's Sophia, Diane, Lydia, and myself.
I think that you should do before 4 because they went from a boy band. They went from a boy band to on stage with Shania Twain in Vegas, and they've released some amazing albums. So I think you should do.
And they've produced like Ryan. Dan Talevsky and other stuff. So yeah, no, I definitely am wanting to do like, and I feel like, and I'm always open for if any boy bands would like to be interviewed by us. We've been trying, we have not gotten any yet, but I would definitely love to do like a Canadian boy band. So B44, Soul Decision, 3 Deep, like all that stuff.
So if you're listening,
we are willing and able to accommodate any boy band that would like to see us. So
thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for inviting me. It was a lot of fun.
I appreciate it. And we will see you with Nick Carter or one of the boy bands. Another picture on Facebook. We'll see that soon.
Bye, 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 bye.